Hey, I'm Kevin from Concept One Pulley Systems, and welcome to Shop Talk. Okay, today we're going to talk about a new pulley system we have. We have what we call a Max 10R, and that is a 10 rib pulley system for superchargers. It's actually 18 rib, but we have a 10 rib supercharger belt that is dedicated just to the supercharger, and then we have an 8 rib belt that drives all the accessories from water pump, alternator, air compressor, conditioning compressor, and power steering pump. So anyway, we're going to do an install today. What we're installing today is an engine we have here, and we have a LSA Supercharger. LSA, LS9 are very similar. This kit will fit the LSA, the LS9, the Whipple 2.9, the Corvette version, the Magnuson Heartbeat, and a Magnuson TVS. We also can do it for a Edelbrock E-Force Supercharger. So I'm just going to walk you through some of the things that this will be pertaining to the LSA and the LS9. They have a snout. Obviously on the front of the supercharger, and these the LSA and LS9 come with a pulley from the factory that's pressed on. Well, that has to be removed. So this one's already been done. We've had this here a long time. Maybe one day if we get another one in here, we'll do a video showing how to do that. But basically what happens is the original pulley is taken off, pressed off, and then we press this hub, which is made by Lingenfelter, onto the shaft. So that's what we kind of have to do this. Also, on the 10 rib supercharger kit, on the smaller diameter pulleys, it kind of depends on the pulley size, but we have to do a little bit of grinding right here just for pulley clearance. So with that said, and there's a little bit on the LS9. There's a few little things that we run into from time to time on some of them, but it's minor stuff. The other thing is, our kits do include a fluid damper harmonic balancer, and they come with the kit, but you have to remove the stock balancer, with a press to pull it off, and then we will press our balancer on it. So that's already been done to this engine, so we're not going to do that today. We may do it later. But other than that, we're just going to install the pulley system. So I'm going to get started. This will be pretty quick. Now, when you install it on your engine, it'd probably be good to take the time to torque the bolts and all that stuff. We're trying to make this quick so you don't have to sit here for an hour to watch all this, but they're pretty easy to install, and I'm going to just tighten them up and go. So if you need torque specifications, we can furnish that to you. All you have to do is call and we can email it to you if you don't have them. So, like I said, I'm going to get started. Okay, this head bracket for the compressor is the first thing to install because if you put the water pump on first, you'll end up having to take it back off because you can't get to that bolt right there. Okay, next is the water pump. Okay, these kits do include the water pump, the Edelbrock, I think it's an 8894. It's the newest LS water pump they have, and it is a nice water pump, very, very nice. One thing I do, we like to use these GM style gaskets, which we do include. They do not need any silicone or any type of glue to seal, but I do like to glue them onto the water pump. Otherwise, you're trying to hold these bolts and hold those gaskets, and they usually end up in the floor. So I just go ahead and kind of glue them to the pump, just enough to hold them in place, and then you can stick it up there with the bolts in it. You can do one at a time if you want to, or I kind of just tend to stick them all in it. This one here, the lower one on the driver's side, okay, it's bolted up. Notice I'm missing one bolt. I left it out on purpose. We've got a bracket that's going to go from there up to the alternator, and there it will get a bolt at that time. So, okay. Next is the alternator and power steering main bracket. It's going to go on the driver's side of the driver's side head to make it flat. but this particular block doesn't have that hole drilled and tapped. So we're just going to get the 3 bolts, but you can kind of see how that works. Okay. All right. Next is the crank pulley. We do have a couple of options here. Now this is an 8.5 inch 10 rib. So that does allow us to get a good bit of boost up top. So it being a bigger diameter than the stock. And LSA was 8 inch stock. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt the crank pulley on. You can see it has the 10 rib on the back and the 8 rib on the front. Now this is one of the things that I would recommend torquing. A lot of this stuff, you know, that's kind of up to you, but this I would. Crank pulley installed. Okay, now we're going to add the main part of the supercharger drive system. Now this we have this is the main bracket. Now this thing had to be super heavy duty, so as we put this together you're going to see what's been done here. Now all this is machined, so you will not have to do any shimming or grinding or anything like that. This thing is made to fit. That's why we supply all these components, so that we know when you get it, it's gonna work for you. You can see that's a 1 inch plate. That thing is stout. So I'm gonna install it right here, get it started on the water pump. And it always works best on any of this stuff to leave it loose until you have all the bolts started. So don't try to put part of them in and then tighten them up and then now on the passenger side lower, we've got this bracket that bolts on the side of the block. It's going to bolt in the front 2 holes, top and bottom. And what this does is the supercharger tensioner will bolt to it. So you can see this stuff just made the bolt up. Next thing, we're going to go ahead and put the idlers to the supercharger on. We've got 4 of them, and this thing is sure enough a serpentine. You've got 3 smooth and 1 grooved on here. And what that does is allows us to snake that belt into a super tight area and also get the wrap on the supercharger and the crank pulley that we want to get. This thing is made to be heavy duty and high performance, so we get a ton of wrap on both of them. So next is the 10 rib tensioner. Goes on the bottom down here, like so. This particular one, we include the part numbers and stuff, but it uses an LS3 thermostat, which would be, I think, probably a 2009 to 13, I believe, but we have the part numbers in the instructions. Now, our thermostat housing is included with this one, mainly because of clearance issues, but also for this kit and what we've seen most applications, the stock thermostat housing is going to come out here at about what I call 8:30. This one's going to turn down in the 6 o'clock position. We can go ahead and put on the supercharger pulley. Okay, now we'll put the supercharger pulley on, and you can see this thing's deep, and that's why it has the we have to grind that clearance. There's a couple little bosses that I think those things are used probably in the machining process to locate or something like that. So that's why we have to grind those off. And like I said, that's a pretty simple thing. This goes on to the Lingenfelter hub. The hub kit does come with the bolts or the screws. Okay, next will be our front AC compressor bracket. And it's going to bolt right on the front here. You can see why you need the thermostat housing on there. We're going to wrap this thing around here. We do have obviously how it goes in the instructions. And we'll wrap it around here and then back down all the way around the crank pulley. And then you can see how much wrap we're going to get on this crank pulley and up top on the supercharger pulley. Now there is a little bit of a trick right here. All right, to work the tensioner, you can use right here, but this works the best for me, you need a 1/2 inch drive pull handle and about a 4 to, at least 4 inch extension so you can miss the thermostat housing. But you can see as it goes down, when you pull down on it, that's the way it works. So then it's tight, compact. Look at the wrap you're getting here. Look at the wrap you're getting here. And we'll go ahead and put the alternator power steering side together here. And I'll install this spacer from the head all the way out to the front of it. That thing is solid. So we have a solid foundation that we build off of. You can see over here the same thing with the alternator. We're going to be bolted to the head and to the block when we have access to that hole, and everything comes off a solid base. Here's our power steering pump. We'll mount it here. It does get a little spacer on the back side of it so we can get the alignment without having to just have an offset pulley that's so wide. Okay, next is, you remember I left this bolt out of the water pump. Well, we have our bracket with it's basically just a stabilizer that's going to run from the alternator down to the water pump right there. So there's that last bolt for the water pump. These are going to go together there. I'll snug this up before I put the alternator in. Before we install the alternator on the engine, I'm going to show you how to put the pulley on the alternator. PowerMaster is adamant that you don't lay this alternator on the back side of it. They're heavy. Sometimes, and I don't think these are as bad, the CS130D, but some of them it can kind of push the bearing back in the housing, and that's going to cause a problem. So as you get your alternator out of your box, they have great instructions, by the way. They tell you exactly step by step, and I do recommend to read the instructions and do it that way, because we have had guys, well, I installed my alternator and it's not charging, or making a noise or something, and we get it back and the bearing is pushed out the back of the housing. So it's very important to do it this way. So put the alternator on its side. You can go ahead and take the nut off. You may even have to hit it with the impact to get it off. They're fairly tight. Take your nut washer off, take the little sleeve off. Pretty simple. Just install your pulley. I know you can figure that out. Put your nut on. I like to run it up snug as I can, but then as you can see, you really don't have a good way to hold this thing. So what I like to do, and they recommend doing too, is I just like to get a glove, just to make sure there's no burrs or something there, and take your glove, hold the pulley. We're going to take the impact wrench and tighten it up. They say roughly 70 foot-pounds of torque. I usually use the impact on the lowest setting, and then you want to spin it and make sure there's no noise or no clicks in it or anything like that. So you can see we're free and it's good to go. One other thing, as the kit that we're working on today is black anodized and a black alternator, and we want to do this on whether it's a natural black polished or chrome alternator. Because anodizing doesn't conduct very well, so you can lose your ground from the engine to your accessories to your alternator. So we have a terminal on the side of the alternator that you'll need to run this to a good solid ground, either to the block or the frame. You just got to make sure these things are grounded correctly, otherwise you'll be wondering why it won't charge. So that's what that's for. Okay. Last thing here is we have a little cap that goes on the front of the alternator pulley to cover up the nut. It's got an O-ring on it. What I like to do is put some sort of lubricant, a little WD-40 or something thin so it'll dry and then it won't come out of there. But I'll be just slicking it up and put it in there and press it on. And there you go. It looks a lot better, doesn't it? All right, now we'll stick the alternator on. You can see these are a tight fit. Keep it as compact and clean as we can get it, but also miss. And yes, you can get your neck on your throttle body right there. All right, next we'll go ahead and put the power steering pulley on. A good way to tighten these, because it's kind of hard to hold that, is I like the socket can go through there and stick on the head of the main pump bolt. And you can tighten them like that right there. One way to hold this thing is you can go ahead and snug them up. Just don't forget, once you get your belt on it, that'll kind of help you hold it to tighten them on. Or sometimes I like to use a small electric impact, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, this compressor, because the supercharger part, the 1-inch bolt is bolted to it, we're bolted to the head. This is a super stout area right here, so we've got 4 bolts. I'm going to have to show you one of them. So we mount the 2 front. The 2 rear ones have a spacer and a 7/16 bolt. So that one will go through there. But since we have a manifold that goes in here and comes between this, we've got to get a bolt in from the back right there, and you can see. Okay, so I've got the valve cover off. Put the bolt through. Now we do install an insert, as you can see right inside. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is an insert that we install here that you'll be able to just run your bolt in. Okay, now we have the back tightened up. We'll go ahead and tighten up the front. So we've got the 2. Okay, so to install this manifold, You have two 12mm bolts here. Just remove the plate. By the way, we get a lot of questions on these compressors. Do they come charged with oil? Yes, they do have oil in them. And so they're ready to install. Now, as you take this plate off, I've had guys take the plate off, and then sometimes these O-rings will stick to this plate. And they call me and say, we don't have any O-rings. Always look on the plate. Most likely they're stuck. They're either in the compressor or stuck to the plate, but it does come with the O-rings. So we'll get rid of the plate here. And we have our little manifold right here that's going to bolt. Now you see why that bolt has to come in from the back on the compressor right here, because there's no room from the front. All right, now we're going to install the compressor nose cover here. I think all you guys can figure this out. It's pretty simple. If you get the holes lined up, the bolts will start. Okay, last but not least is the tensioner, and then we're going to put a belt on it. You can see why all right. We'll wrap our belt around. Pull the tensioner down, and again, I like to use the smooth pulley to put the belt on last, and then work your way around it, make sure everything's straight before you release it. And there's your Max 10R installed. One other thing I will show you that is included in the kit is they do come with a remote power steering reservoir. We do have them with 2 ports for Hydro Boost. It's just whichever one, but that is included with the kit. I think you saw it on the picture of the table earlier. But you can see it's not that hard to line up, to bolt on. Everything's made to fit. You can look at the alignment, it's all there. And we're going to also, at the end of this video, have a video of this kit being run on the dyno. We did take the 8 rib off of it because they have an electric water pump, pushing water, but you can see the 10 rib and the tensioner and the function all on the dyno. Thank you very much. We appreciate you watching.